Welcome everyone, Dr. Linda here. What I would like to show you is some of these torso shots. We'll go through some of the muscles that are superficial here, not get into too much deep detail, but just when you look at things superficially, you should have a good understanding of what type of muscular anatomy we have. So let's look at this first one here, just looking at what we see superficially in the front to get some general basic anatomy down. So in the front of the chest, that's your Pec Major region. If we were to dissect Pec Major and pull it away, that's where we can see Pec Minor. Pec Minor goes from ribs 3, 4, 5 up to the coracoid process. Around the shoulder, giving the shoulder its nice rounded thick contours, the deltoid. Again, the deltoid has an anterior division, a posterior division, and a middle division. And each division can move the arm. And when I say arm, I'm referring to the humerus. When I say shoulder, I too am referring to the humerus. So the anterior delt will flex the shoulder, posterior delt will extend the shoulder, and the middle delt will abduct the shoulder. In the front, if we look at the abdominal region, we have the rectus abdominis running linearly. Superficially is an external abdominal oblique. And if we deflect that back, we could see the internal oblique. Generally speaking, in the front, we will cover this when I do the lower extremity. In the front, we have the quadricep muscles, and we'll go over them in more detail, but I don't want to get into too much with the extremities just yet. Let's look here, a little bit clearer definition. So here's pectoralis major. Here's pectoralis minor. Again, you could see the upper ribs to the coracoid process. Here's the rectus abdominis. And now we can see the external oblique runs in this direction. And then the internal oblique runs perpendicular to it. Intercostals, there's internal and external intercostals. A little bit tough to see in this picture, so I'm not going to hold you accountable for those. But intercostals just means it's between the ribs. Intercostals. Now, if we were to take the chest plate, dissect it off, now we're looking at it on the inside. Here's the transverse abdominis, right? Transverse abdominis runs transversely. And on the inner part, we could see the lower portion of the rectus abdominis. Again, those fibers are more linear. Rectus means linear, up and down. Here's the diaphragm that's cut. Beautiful picture here. When you look on the right-hand side, the trapezius is intact. So we have the upper trapezius, middle trapezius, and lower trapezius. Once we deflect it back, now it allows us to see that Splenius capitis here. And here's the levator scapula, right? So it kind of makes like a V, but an upside down V. But levator scapula goes from that superior angle of the scapula up to C1 to C4, TPs. Here's your rhomboid minor, rhomboid major. Rhomboid minor is C7 to T1 spinous process to the medial border of the scapula. Rhomboid major, T2, T3, T4, T5, also to the vertebral border of the scapula. Here's your spine of the scapula, which will separate the supraspinatus from the infraspinatus muscle. Now, supraspinatus and infraspinatus are two of the 4 rotator cuff muscles. There are 2 more rotator cuff muscles. One of them is this one right here, number 4, which is the teres minor. So right here we have sit, S-I-T, and the rotator cuff muscles are called sits muscles, S-I-T-S, S-I-T-S. I'm showing you S-I-T, supraspinatus for S, infraspinatus for I, and teres minor for the T, S-I-T. Now, remember I said minors are always above majors. So teres minor is above teres major, but teres major is not a rotator cuff muscle. It is not a rotator cuff muscle. Only numbers 1, 2, and 4. 1, 2, and 4. Supraspinatus, infraspinatus, and teres minor. All three of these insert on the greater tubercle of the humerus. They have the same insertion site. So the next question is, well, doc, you said there are 4 rotator cuff muscles. You mean these 4 are not the rotator cuff muscles? Correct, they're not. Only number 1, 2, and 4. So what's the 4th rotator cuff muscle? Supraspinatus, infraspinatus, teres minor. There's one on the anterior side called the subscapularis. When I cover the shoulder in another lab, I'll show you the subscapularis. But you can see at least 3 of them here: supraspinatus, infraspinatus, and teres minor. Minors are always above majors, and teres minor, number 4, and teres major, number 3, are going to sandwich and pinch this belly of this muscle here, which is the triceps. And when I cover the arm muscles, I'll clearly show you the triceps gets pinched between teres minor and teres major. Here's the Latissimus Dorsi, the lats on the right-hand side. Again, here's that thoracolumbar aponeurosis. Look at the lats. It originates on the lower 6 thoracic, all of the lumbar, the sacrum, the pelvis, and it goes up in this direction, and it attaches to the front of the shoulder where the bicipital groove is. In the back, we got the glutes. There's your gluteus maximus. That's a large rump muscle. It's a powerful hip extensor. And then here's your gluteus medius, which is a primary hip abductor. When I do the lower extremity, we'll go over these in more detail. Okay, let's look at the neck here. Here's the trapezius that's on the right half, but it's cut on the left half. Because it's cut, we can see really, really nice that Splenius capitis right here. And then you could see levator scapula. And then in the front, you'd see all the scalenes, which we can't quite see, right? But it would be the scalenus posterior, middle, and anterior. But Splenius capitis, levator scapula. Rhomboid minor, rhomboid major, supraspinatus, infraspinatus. This little short one here that's deep, it's the semi-spinalis capitis, right? It's a little short one, but it's deep to this one. It's deep to the Splenius capitis. Okay, this is the one I was looking forward to showing you because I had mentioned earlier, here's the Splenius capitis, right? Let's get ourselves oriented. So here's the occiput, here's the angle of the mandible. Okay, here's your, looks like your thyroid gland here. So here's the Splenius capitis. Here's your levator scapula. Now, number 1, 2, and 3. Number 1 is the anterior scalene. Number 2 is the middle scalene. And number 3 is the posterior scalene. Between the anterior and the middle scalene, you can see the yellow structure and the red. So this is what we call the neurovascular bundle. The neural component is the brachial plexus. That's the group of nerves that come out of the neck, and it goes all the way down into your fingertips. And then here's the subclavian artery. and subclavian vein. So this is what most of us have experienced at least once in our life when you're sleeping on your stomach with your head turned, arm under the pillow. What ends up happening? Your fingers, sometimes you wake up in the morning and you don't know where your fingers are because they're all numb and tingly. Or if you're at the beach and you're on your back and you put your hands behind your head, above behind your head, your hands can go numb as well. They call it thoracic outlet syndrome. And really, thoracic outlet syndrome is just when there's compression of the nerve and or the artery by these muscles here. Okay, and either create this numbness and tingling into the hands, or it can create poor blood supply into the fingertips. So people can get cold extremities if you're getting poor blood supply from the subclavian getting compressed by these thickened, hypertrophied scalenes. They call it thoracic outlet syndrome. Okay, let's see what we have labeled here. Number 1 is the SCM, sternocleidomastoid. Number 2 is the upper trapezius. Number 4 is Pec Major. Number 7, Pec Minor, going from the upper ribs to the coracoid process. And number 3 is the anterior deltoid. Up here, frontalis, orbicularis oculi, orbicularis oris. Frontalis, orbicularis oculi, temporalis, orbicularis oris, mentalis, masseter, risorius, sternocleidomastoid. Ooh, so pretty. Look at that anterior scalene. And then there's the yellow nerves. There's the brachial plexus. So this is the anterior scalene. Posterior to it would be the middle scalene. And then posterior to that, the posterior scalene. And that's the brachial plexus. Here's the auricularis. There's your masseter. Really pretty, right? This is nice because you could see everything from posterior to anterior. So you could see the trapezius here, upper traps. Then you got the splenius capitis. Then just anterior to that, levator scapula. Then you have your scalenes, scalenus posticus, medius, anterior. And then you have your sternocleidomastoid. Really good picture to review. Okay, here's your temporalis. There's your splenius capitis, levator scapula. And now you got your landmark, right? Now you have the neurovascular bundle. You got your brachial plexus, subclavian artery. You got 1, 2, 3 scalene sisters. Anterior scalene, middle scalene, and posterior scalene. The neurovascular bundle is sandwiched between the anterior and the middle.